How do you become one of the most talked about players on the LPGA Tour without winning almost nothing? For years, Natalie Gulbis was in the harshest spotlight imaginable, with critics circling like vultures, ready to tear her down at every turn.
Just another pretty face. She's never going to make it in the big leagues.
But then, everything changed. Not the criticism, but what Natalie did to the people who were against her. Out of nowhere, she did something no one saw coming, leaving her haters completely stunned. What did she do to turn the tables so dramatically? And how did she leave the entire golfing world speechless? Well, it began when Natalie burst onto the scene in the early 2000s. It took the greens by storm. She was a tall, athletic blonde with a killer swing and looks that made people do double takes. She was the total package, right? Well, not according to everyone in the golfing world. Natalie had a problem, but not the kind you'd expect. Her issue? She was too good looking. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Cry me a river. But seriously, hear me out. In the super traditional, kinda stuffy world of golf, Natalie's appearance became both her blessing and her curse. The media couldn't get enough of her. Cameras followed her every move on the course. But they weren't always focused on her golf game. Nope, they were more interested in the outfits, her looks, and the tabloid-worthy headlines like, "Who's she dating now?" And while the cameras flashed, the critics started to circle. "Just another pretty face," they sniped. "She'll never be a serious contender." They'd toss her name in the ring with legends like Annika Sorenstam or Michelle Wie, but always with an eye roll, like Natalie just didn't measure up. It was like they couldn't wrap their heads around the idea that a woman could be both beautiful and talented. But Natalie? Oh, she wasn't about to let any of that noise get to her. Nope, not even for a second. If anything, she was gearing up to prove something big, something the world wasn't ready for. Let's talk about Natalie's game for a sec. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you she was the next Tiger Woods. That's not what this story is about. But make no mistake, Natalie could play. I mean, she turned pro at 18. How many of us can say we were doing anything remotely that impressive at that age? In her early years on the LPGA Tour, Natalie was consistently placing in the top 10. She was making waves, and not just because of her looks. In 2005, she finished 6th on the money list, raking in over $1 million. Not too shabby, right? But the critics? They just couldn't let up. They kept harping on about how she hadn't won a tournament yet. It was like they were waiting with bated breath for her to fail, just so they could say, "See? We told you so." Then came 2007, the Evian Masters in France, one of the biggest stages in women's golf. Natalie stepped up to that first tee with fire in her eyes, knowing this was her moment. She played her heart out, battling it out with some of the best in the world, and then in a dramatic sudden death playoff, she did it. She freaking won! Her first ever LPGA Tour win. Can you picture it? Natalie standing there, holding that trophy, smiling like a champion. You'd think that would silence the critics, right? Wrong. Instead, they shifted gears. "Oh, it's just one win," they muttered. "Let's see if she can keep it up." Unbelievable, right? How do you not give credit after a win like that? But enough was enough. She wasn't just playing their game anymore. She was writing her own rulebook. While the golfing world was busy criticizing her every move, Natalie was busy building an empire. And let me tell you, this is where she took her ultimate revenge that no one saw coming. See, Natalie figured out something that a lot of athletes never do. She realized that her career on the course had an expiration date, but her brand, that could last forever. So, what did she do? She leveraged every ounce of that fame and beauty that the critics loved to hate. In 2004, she released a swimsuit calendar. The golfing purists freaked out. The USGA even banned it from being sold at the US Women's Open. But you know what? It sold very well everywhere else. And Natalie? She was just getting started. She posed for FHM, launched her own reality show on the Golf Channel, and even became a character in video games. While other golfers were busy practicing their putts, Natalie was turning herself into a bona fide celebrity. But here's the thing. She didn't let that fame derail her golf game. She stayed sharp, competing in the Solheim Cup and representing her country with pride. She was doing it all, and somehow, she made it look effortless. How did she pull it off? There's probably one thing going through your minds right now, so let's talk about it. Yes, it's true that the 2007 Evian Masters was the only tournament she won. So, how is that considered a success? Well, that's where we need to redefine what success really means in the world of professional sport. See, Natalie understood something that a lot of people don't. She knew that her career as a professional golfer was just the beginning. It was her launchpad, not her final destination. By 2005, at the ripe old age of 22, Natalie had already achieved financial security. She'd taken care of her parents. She'd established not one, not two, but 3 businesses: a cosmetics company, an apparel line, and a handbag company. Oh, and did I mention she had contracts with over a dozen Fortune 500 companies? While her critics were busy counting her tournament wins, Natalie was counting her millions. She was building a brand that would outlast any golf career, and she was doing it with style. There's something surprising about all this. While everyone was criticizing her, she didn't let it get to her. Did they say she was just a pretty face? Well, she'd go ahead and use that to her advantage. In 2012, she made a move that absolutely shocked the traditional golf world by appearing in the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. But here's where things get really bold. She wasn't just modeling in a bikini. Nope, Natalie posed wearing nothing but body paint. The golfing world was scandalized. How could she do this, they cried. She's making a mockery of the sport. But you know what? Natalie didn't care. She was too busy being featured in one of the most iconic issues of one of the most popular magazines in the world. And she didn't stop there. In 2016, she spoke at the Republican National Convention. Now, I'm not here to talk politics, but think about that for a second. How many professional golfers do you know who've spoken at a national political convention? Yeah, that's what I thought. She was building a platform that went way beyond golf. She was becoming an influencer before that was even a thing. Now let's fast forward a bit. It's 2020, and Natalie announces that it's going to be her final season on the LPGA Tour. The golfing world holds its breath, waiting for her to express regret and apologize for not living up to their expectations. But Natalie kept them hanging as she did something completely different. She just pens an open letter and, well, she lays it all out. She talks about her struggles, her triumphs, and her businesses. But most importantly, she makes it clear that she has zero regrets. Zero. Nada. She writes, and I quote, "I never bought into the theory that a female athlete couldn't be attractive, possess business savvy, and be a fierce competitor." Boom. There it is. Natalie's mic drop moment. And honestly, it's like she just shattered every outdated stereotype in one sentence. She goes on to break down exactly how she spent her time. 90% of her time was spent on golf, which only earned her 10% of her income. The other 10% of her time, that was spent on business deals that earned her 90% of her income. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like a pretty smart business strategy to me. Throughout all of this, the criticism, the controversy, the business deals, Natalie never lost her love for the game. In that same letter, she writes about how she still approaches every tournament with the goal of winning. She talks about how she pushed her body to the limit, often ignoring doctors' advice, all in pursuit of victory. This wasn't a woman who was just in it for the fame or the money. This was a competitor, through and through. And you know what? That's what makes Natalie's story so powerful. She didn't just succeed despite the criticism. She succeeded because of it. Every sneer, every dismissive comment, every accusation that she was just a pretty face, it all just fueled her fire. So, let's recap. Natalie Gulbis, the girl they said would never make it, the one they accused of being all looks and no talent. What did she do? She won a major tournament. She represented her country in the Solheim Cup. She built multiple successful businesses. She became a celebrity in her own right. She spoke at a national political convention. She posed for Sports Illustrated. She launched a TV show called 18 Holes. And she even got appointed to the President's Council on Sports Fitness and Nutrition. Oh, and did I mention she made millions of dollars along the way? Now that, my friends, is what I call revenge. Natalie didn't just prove her critics wrong, she rendered them irrelevant. While they were busy nitpicking her golf game, she was building an empire. She took every criticism, every doubt, every dismissive comment, and she turned it into fuel. Fuel to drive her forward, to push her to achieve things that her critics couldn't even dream of. Natalie Gulbis didn't just change the game, she created her own game, and she's winning at it.